My name is Jay. I am a Section 8 consultant. I deal with around 700 to 1,000 clients a year. And today we have Monique Burns. I call her the Queen of Detroit. So we're so glad to have her. And we're going to get a little bit into her history and what she does out in Detroit and some of the surrounding areas. So I'm going to hand it over to Monique for now.
All right. Thank you, Jay. I'm so excited to be doing this. I've been wanting to collab with you for a couple of years. And the way that I started was wanting to collab with you was as a fan. And I would watch your videos and learn. And it was really important for me to watch them because I'm a landlord. I started back in 2007. My husband and I started. We were really lucky that we could do that, get some houses in Detroit when they were really super cheap as a house can be. And we built up a few investment houses of our own. And then in 2015, we started flipping houses for other people. So people would call and say, hey, I want to do what you're doing in Detroit. And so we would buy the house, renovate it, sell it to them. But then they always wanted a property manager. And my very first tenant had Section 8. And I had to learn from my tenant, and I went in grossly misled about what Section 8 was. And I was kind of taught that it was like dealing with prisoners, so I had to be really tough.
Wow.
And then my husband and I met her, and we're like, that's just not true. She's a real person.
Yeah.
And she's still our tenant. She's been there since 2008. And she very kindly, gently taught us how Section 8 works. And I realized it's like the best kept secret. So in 2020, I actually sold my property management company. I had some downtime, like everybody had some downtime. And we're still flipping houses. So I was watching your videos and I'm learning about it. And I thought, oh, okay, landlords need to understand this. So if I talk to landlords about Section 8, how it works as a landlord, they'll see me as an expert in Detroit and say, oh, I would like to buy a house from her. But then it turned out that tenants started reaching out to me and saying, well, how does this work and how does that work? And I'm like, I don't know that. And that's how I finally got to meet you, was that I would tell people, like, yeah, don't ask me that. But there's this guy, Jay, Section8Consulting.com. Talk to him. And when you do, tell him about Monique Burns, because I really want to do a collab with him. So here I am. And my people have called you, haven't they?
No, they have. They have, absolutely. And, one thing that I've struggled with over the years, there's a lot of people who make videos, and so few that I would consider genuine, in my opinion. And so I can think of only two at this point, one of which is yourself, and another gentleman on TikTok. And so it's always good. I know for years I've been in my collaborations, so I'm kind of glad that Miss Monique here pushed me, gave me that extra push to get out there. Because
I kind of begged.
Yeah, maybe a little, but you know what? I still think it's a good thing, because what we're doing is parallels each other. You're dealing in that market, and a big part of what we both do, unfortunately, is kind of have to educate people, because they know what they want, but they don't necessarily always know how to get through all the extras. And no matter what we do, both of our fields of work collide, so we kind of depend on each other. Do you know, Monique, whether or not you're going to be participating in the HUD ownership program?
What is that? I don't even know about it.
Okay, so housing authorities around the country, the few that are left that do it, have the HUD home ownership program. And that would allow tenants, well, not tenants, let's say prospective voucher holders, to utilize their voucher, and instead of paying rent to a landlord, it would allow them to go out, purchase a home with the housing authority, not paying rent for them, but paying part of their mortgage, 70% of their mortgage. And so that
70% of their mortgage?
Yep. It's the best deal in America.
So how does a landlord like me do that? What would my role be in facilitating that? I'm confused.
Provided the PHA, or the Public Housing Authority out there in Detroit or near Detroit, if they provide that program, then if a client came to you, you would be the broker or real estate agent negotiating the deal. The lender's requirements are all the same, like any purchase of a normal home. The difference is, really the only big difference is you have the full backing of the U.S. government paying their mortgage. So your interaction would still be very much the same as dealing with a market rate person. The only difference really would be is the clients being Fannie Mae, Fannie Mac, and whatever type of loan they're doing, except they're under the rules and policy of the housing authority. So your interaction would be pretty much the same old thing. It would just be quietly a Section 8 tenant that is utilizing the HUD homeownership program. That's it. I can't really think how it would fundamentally change what you're doing. So,
I wonder if the inspections are any different than like an FHA mortgage, because I know, like sometimes when people get a mortgage through the government.
Yep, there'll be two, because PHAs, the differentiating factors, there'd be two inspections. HQS is a housing quality inspection, obviously, for tenants and vouchers. There's a different variation of that for the home. Now, of course, the lender could give a damn about the housing authority and the little certificates they have, because HQS, or housing quality inspections, are administered county or private individual working with the housing authority, but these people are not that qualified to do that. So, of course, the bank or lender is going to want a real professional out there. So I think there would be two samplings. One which where the PHA would send out probably somebody of a lower tier, and then of course whatever lender requirements or real estate requirements from your perspective would require a real licensed person to be out there. But yeah, unfortunately there's a double layer to this deal. Just like the lending process for the HUD homeownership program, there has to be two sets of criteria. One, you have to actually meet the criteria which the PHA sets up. If you clear that hurdle, then you may move on to a normal agent or broker or so on like yourself. And I think that's because they're trying to help folks not get into a situation where they're dealing with sharks and other bad deals, like rent to home, rent to own, and all that, where it becomes a little bit perilous. But yeah.
So. Yeah, that would be nice. I would love it. I've had one tenant since '08 who, it's our success story, and it's helpful to landlords to have success stories, because it helps investors know that when they buy a house, and that's who my clients are, the investors that are buying the houses in Detroit, to know that if they rent to somebody with Section 8, they use the program to better themselves. And this one tenant, she moved in I think 2010 or so, and she had to pay like around $40 a month rent. Oh, wow. And she was in her nicest, most upscale house that was around 1,000 something, a little over 1,000 a month rent. Bit by bit, she had to pay more and more of the $1,000 a month rent. And I always got worried about that when Section 8 changes the amount. And I would get the letter, I'd be like, well, how is she supposed to do that? She's got 4 kids. And they would tell me at Section 8, no, we did her income verification, she's fine. Well, she had gone to school as a dental assistant, I think, to learn how to become a dental assistant. She did it. She got the job. She started making money. At the end, it was opposite, where she only paid $40 of her voucher. And then she said, well, I have really good news. I bought a house.
Yep.
Like, that is good news. And we got to watch, like, her kids grow up, and they went off to college, and they were really good athletes in high school and stuff. And we got to see all that. And we felt like we were really part of providing a good thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we use that program.
Well, you know, we've tried at our company to help people with that. And to be frank with you, it's quite time consuming compared to a standard mortgage and what you're typically doing with market rate. I'm suggesting clients work with us 4 or 8 months sometimes, because they're not ready in every aspect. They may not be credit worthy. There may be other issues out there. Deposits, inspections, lender requirements. So what would take a month or two on the standard market could take up to 8. And that's because of the convolution and the very slow wheels that turn at the PHA. But thankfully, that's really more on the recipient side than it is on you. So you're kind of in receivership at the point when things are actually starting to run. I think, but you know, it'd be nice if somebody was specialized. I wish we could do it, but I've taken a few cases, but I got to tell you, it would be cost prohibitive for us to consult in that arena. 2, I'm starting to see there are some legal lines in which I'm giving advice, and I'm not a licensed agent in all these different states, and so you always run that risk of crossing that line, and you may be giving whether or not we're giving legal advice or we're giving professional advice about something we shouldn't.
Yeah.
However, you're in a perfect position to take on stuff like that if you ever decide to jump in the market, or you know.
Yeah, I mean, when we started with our own investment properties, I got my real estate license. I wanted to do everything legally. In order to be a legal property manager, at least in the state of Michigan, you have to do it through a broker. And so I had a broker above me that, covered me. And that's something tenants should know. Yeah, is your landlord even professional? I mean, there's lots of mom and pop landlords and there's nothing wrong with it. But if it's a property management company, that's different. So I just recently got my broker's license too, so that I'm just more, like you said, you want to do everything legally and do it right. Jay, I wondered how many of the housing commissions offer that program where people can even do, because I bring it up to tenants all the time. Like, yeah, did you look into it to see if you could get a mortgage eventually? I mean, it sounds like you work and you're really dedicated. And they're like, what?
There's not a national list that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So the problem, a lot of people ask about it, is we get out there, work with clients to get vouchers. We literally have got to contact hundreds of PHAs across the state, in some cases, until we identify one that has that program. Now, the program rolled out early 2000s, and it's dissipated greatly since then. Back then, it was of great value, and so they started rolling it back. The biggest rollback was in 16. So I would say approximately out of around 3,800 PHAs, only about 20% of them left would even offer that program. And they've had 20 years to, and I want to be perfectly frank, they've had 20 years to convolute it. So it can be a bit strenuous for those that are in a hurry. But if you are patient, just like my seniors are always my most patient clients, you'll do exceedingly well if you're determined and don't give up. So, but yet it's research, market research, and contacting PHAs around the nation until you identify one that works, and they can jump in and out of that program at any time. So, doing a round across the state covering 158 counties and 158 housing authorities may yield one result in January, it may yield a different in February. That's what makes it so difficult, because I'd have to create an algorithm almost to keep up with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know.
Well, yeah.
I was going to say, I know you had some questions.
I do. I get together with landlords twice a month, landlords and investors, and people are talking about 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and targeting different groups of tenants, I guess. And I'm always like, get the Section 8 one. Oh, I just want to say, all these years they're like, oh, Monique's crazy, she'll take Section 8 until 2020. Now they're like, so now how does that work? Like, oh, now you want to know. But anyway, I wonder how you target seniors, because like the 1 bedrooms are good for seniors, but I don't get seniors that ever call me to rent houses. It's always single moms seem to get the vouchers, but like the 1 bedroom should be great for seniors.
There's 2 ways I've identified with people approximately 55 and older, I would say, and I'm not necessarily saying 55 is senior, but there's roughly half of them, 70%, are old school. You got to go to the newspaper. There's no doubt about that. The second half, and I've tried all media venues, YouTube is the second most successful place. When I work with landlords, like right now, we're working with a bunch of them. I actually got a new one last week. First thing they asked, how are you going to do it? I said, well, look, first I'm going to capture the audience that I have on my own channel, because probably over 80% of the people that watch my videos are 55 plus. So that's an instant audience. So those seniors may not be good at every technology. They do know what YouTube is, so it works well. Number 2, the newspaper. And number 3, Facebook Marketplace has been successful in some ways, but really not that much for seniors.
What you're saying, to put in a newspaper for rent?
Yeah, literally.
I haven't done that since 2007, my first tenant.
Hey, I tried it once, and the age group completely shipped. And so, I mean, if it even exists, wanted ads anymore. I mean, clearly we all remember what those were, but yeah, I've used the paper a few times. Seniors are valuable in this market. They're valuable for two very good reasons, very logical reasons. One, if they've got a voucher, then that's one government check that you're guaranteed as a landlord. What's the second way that you could do this would be seniors usually are packing a second thing, a disability check, a Social Security check, or survivor benefits. That's a second check. That mitigates your risk as a landlord virtually to nothing. Now, you mentioned something about 8 minutes ago or 5 minutes ago about the shift in the market. Pre-pandemic, 2019, everybody had the same stigmata pretty much about the market, vouchers, and renting to Section 8. The pandemic did something very unusual I never thought would ever happen. So many market rate people lost their jobs. So many landlords couldn't pay their mortgages that for once they had to consider vouchers that they never wanted to do. And that was the only safe way. Now, what was interesting is while I watched this play out for years, what I saw was all my landlords that accepted vouchers went unscathed. They passed through the pandemic like nothing happened. And the ones that did the seniors, virtually untouched. And so the sentiment literally changed over the last 3 years. I've got landlords, and I'm not talking about just small ones and little old properties. I've got investment groups, banks, and even some of the biggest landlords in the nation's calling me. I know one big firm just called us the other day. They want us to help them with 2,300 homes. They said, Jay, we tried the market rate for years, and it was fabulous. Now this is hit. We've got to give these houses to people we know that they've got a check coming. We know there's going to, so we can pay. These houses are empty. We can't trust people to keep their job. So market sentiment has changed to a better degree. I don't know where it's going to go after this, but I think that having seniors and being able to reach out to them specifically through video feeds when possible. Seniors don't hang out on TikTok. They don't hang out on Facebook, but they do hang out on YouTube. I've looked at the analytics for years. And even when I market on the YouTube and I pay for the ads, I target 55 plus because that is the biggest chunk of audience out there. So they really do like to see it, hear, and feel you. There's a certain context video brings. They don't want to hang out on TikTok and watch something that's 3 seconds long. That's for the younger audience that need to be entertained quickly. My seniors are actually listening intently to every word I say. Same as you, Monique, when you make videos. In fact, Monique's the first person that made videos about Section 8 that ever even competed with mine. It was quite stunning.
I'm not your competitor.
It was quite stunning. I
Not
was
even
like,
close.
she popped in the market, and you made a couple really good videos, and they actually outrank a lot of my videos. And I was like, whoa, who is this lady?
I just wanted to look like an expert to investors that buy houses in
Hey, well, you hit
Detroit.
it in the right spot. YouTube felt you were worthy, and
Yeah.
you know, I've been saturating the market for a decade, so it was time to get some new people out there pushing videos. You know, it's good to have a little competition. But you know, Monique's really not a direct. I don't think you think of you as direct competition.
No, not at all.
I think we're both trying to help in the same way. You know, housing's a serious issue. And it really matters.
I get accused of like, hey, I saw one of your videos, Monique. What did you go to the other side? Why are you helping tenants? Like, because you have to. I don't think it's good to just be good to one kind of people. You can't. That's not fair. I'm good to both my clients. I'm good to tenants. I'm good to owners. And if an owner doesn't believe in being good to a tenant, then that's not going to be an investor that I want to work with ever.
Yeah, our company policy is very strict about that. I tell landlords, and I'm very broad. I will not look. My phone always rings, so I'm not worried about the money that's involved in dealing with big landlords. But I tell them, you know, if we engage in this relationship and you become unethical or you start doing things that are completely against the very nature of how we are as a company or the videos we make, then I'll just drop you. I have no use for that. I'm certainly not going to spend 10 years of my life on YouTube and then turn around and have a landlord come in and then they want to weaponize me against tenants. No, thank you. We won't do it. So I'm glad, Monique, that we think alike in that respect. It's
Yeah.
not worth it at all. People that are on vouchers and trying to get HUD houses and all that, they're already very desperate in desperate situations. The last thing they need to be used is be used and abused again. It's
Right.
better, you know,
Right.
they're already in a dysfunctional situation with the housing authority is barely funded, and the people are pretty rough to deal with, and so they don't want to be abused again by a landlord because
Yeah.
I actively work against landlords, the bad ones. So yeah, I feel you there.
My video that I get the most negative comments to me, and it's wrong, is I made a video about, and this, I'm thinking about landlords, you know, what do you do when you have somebody violating Section 8? And I think my title was catchy, like how to get rid of a Section 8 tenant or something like that.
Oh,
It might have been a little clickbait-ish,
yeah.
but it really triggers people. And
Oh, yeah.
the tenants, I'm assuming they don't sound like owners of houses, are writing in saying, how dare you try to lose vouchers have people lose vouchers? I'm like, wait a minute. I talk to people every day that need vouchers.
Yeah.
Yet then I get to see people abusing their vouchers.
Absolutely.
On the other hand, and don't you want the abusers off the program so the people that really need it can get on the program?
You know, making videos, plenty of things get out of context, even when we don't intend it. I've had videos where I had plenty of hate mail in the beginning. I've had to block over 1,500 words. I would estimate roughly 8 to 9% of the market for vouchers and those that have them are there for unethical reasons, okay? And so I think that's quite appropriate. However, we must be careful because we teach too much that can also be weaponized against real clients that have no involvement. That might have ruffled a few feathers, but you know, I've made plenty of videos. When HUD gets defunded, I'm going on rampages and videos filled with profanities because it's upsetting.
Yeah.
But yeah,
well, I get upset as a landlord when people really abuse it, and then it upsets me that I mean, the kind of the gist of my video was there's really not much you can do about it anyway.
oh, there
Like I
absolutely
can
is.
report it to Section 8, but they don't seem to care.
Well,
You know, unless a bailiff came to remove them, they're like, yeah, we don't care. Like, what?
well, here's my advice when it comes to the serious part on that. If you deal with the county housing authority, the PHA, they're not technically HUD. They're just administrators of federal funds, and they're poorly operated, poorly, you know, everything. I would recommend that you take your cases to HUD's OIG hotline, and that's 1-800-347-3735. Look, that's the Inspector General's office as well. They take this stuff very seriously. Problem is, the best linkage to OIG and all, and there's another agency as well, federal agency that's a little bit lower, FHEO, which is Fair Housing. But, you know, housing authorities are a lot like this. It's a good example. If a cop pulls you over, beats you up, you go home, you recover, and then once you get over the shame of what's happened, you go down to the police station and you ask them to investigate. And then you meet the investigator, which ended up actually being the guy that just beat you up yesterday. That's the problem with reporting anything to housing authorities. It goes right in the trash can. I always like to shoot it to the AOGs for each state and also at the federal level.
What's AOG?
OIG, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Office of Inspector General.
Okay.
Yeah, I go for the throat on this stuff on both ends, landlords and tenants. That way, that kind of conduct that's going on gets investigated at the federal level. Forget the county, forget the state. Just go straight for the neck on it if there's an actual case of that. Now, because look, let's be honest. People in housing, everybody in the building, including the executive level people, they've all got 400 cases apiece to work every day. Unless you got some devastating video footage on Channel 9, chances are your call down there is just bullshit to them. Let's just be honest. That's what it's going to be to them.
True.
They're not going to do jack. Unless the person committing the fraud is a tenant, does something to piss off the worker. Now, when you aggravate those people that are overworked at over there at the PHA, Boy, I tell you, fire and brimstone will come raining down on you. But outside of that, look, people have played so many games with the reporting, they don't do anything anymore. So I always recommend HUD's OIG hotline for this, and it's quite damaging because the feds are required to investigate within 10 days. And if there's any legitimacy to the conversation, they call the housing authority. The people of the housing authority, they shut their mouth. At that point, you're now listening to a fed. There won't be any double talk, sideways talk, or trying to dilute the whole report. They're answerable. The housing authority is absolutely answerable to the feds. It's no joke at that point for them. So I always say just skip it up right on to the OIG, and that's the Office Inspector General, and they'll put them in the fryer for that. So it may take a while administratively. Everything takes a month. The wheels are very slow with justice, but if there's any case whatsoever, you can bet that there will be an investigation, and there's nothing nastier than having a federal agent show up at your home. And for those that don't know, the OIG will send the FBI out. And I'm serious. They'll send the FBI, and at that point, again, it's a one-way conversation. If a law or federal law has been violated, it becomes extremely serious at that point. Defrauding the government for vouchers. Look, I've spoke about Section 9 for years. We all know what Section 8 is. So what do you think Section 9 is?
You just taught me that. I never knew what that was.
Look, federal penitentiary provides utilities, housing, food, and health care. They're happy. It's a great retirement plan. You get a 75% lease. They'll let you out after 75% of your lease has been covered, and then you're well to go. They'll give you a free pair of bracelets, ride you on the bus back into town, and drop you off at the homeless shelter. And if you repeat, they'll give you another lease. So I don't advise Section 9. That is the federal system that's a very special voucher that you don't want.
Hey, what kind of crimes or fraud have you seen tenants actually get in trouble for with Section 8? Because, like, the one that I can think of that is the most common are that they use it as a boarding house.
Mm-hmm. By the way, this little mama,
I never report people for that because I don't really care. If you want too many people in your house, that's kind of your problem. But I think I'm in the minority with that. I think most landlords get really upset when they see extra bodies in a house.
Well, the occupancy part is it's a violation of the HAP contract, but the biggest types of fraud I see, and a really good example of this was the early 80s. People that lived in New York and New Jersey, they would cross several different state lines, and they live in one apartment and sublease the rest of the apartments. Now, that was back when the systems were more antiquated for housing authorities. Now, they've changed it. They can detect it, but it's not as quick as you think. They've also caught housing authority employees doing that as well. But the primary type of fraud I see is lying on applications, lying about the preferences. Now, some of the things you're bringing up there is tenancy violations, but unfortunately they're not federal violations, and they're not county unless they're going way over the occupancy level. So yeah, it would be fraud, but fraud at the federal level for receiving a voucher, receiving monetary money from the United States government while committing fraud is very serious. So just the very nature of lying about whatever you need to lie to get that voucher could be the very reason you get Section 9.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say the most common thing I see is that. Also, Section 8 vouchers have been a very big host of drug dealers, prostitutes, and gang activity.
We've had a prostitute before.
Oh yeah. And let me tell you something. They use stolen identities and many things to get in there. That's why I always tell my landlords, just because somebody shows up and they've got on their Sunday slippers and dress, don't mean that's the same client you're going to be dealing with when they move in that door. And so we have to screen very carefully. And I've told landlords, a lot of them don't want to do this, but just a moral integrity conversation. I don't just screen people's backgrounds. We actually get on the phone with them, and I start talking with them, and then seeing about, because you know what, I've had more than a few just come out and straight tell me the truth. Loose lips, you know. And this is my co-host, little mama. She is big about attention. I got to tell you, if you're going to make videos, always bring your cats and dogs with you. People love it. Now, just to be frank, I didn't bring her into the video. She came on her own. I didn't set this up. So
she's a showman.
she is. She's
She
a good
likes the
girl.
stage.
Yeah, she's a good girl. She decides she needs some attention. There's no getting around that one. So I knew she was going to come join us.
I showed a house to a potential tenant once, and she had Section 8, and I think she was still drunk from the night before.
Oh boy.
And it was a prime house on a really prime street, back when houses were a lot cheaper and we could pick it up. And it had a walk-in closet. And she said, yeah, this house is not going to work for me. That is not even nearly enough room for all my shoes. I'm like, okay, that's really, don't say that to me. I get my clothes at the thrift store, but whatever. But then she started telling me that she was part of that fraud ring. You heard about that fraud ring, right?
Oh.
At the hospital. And I'm like, why are you even telling me this? But she was still kind of wasted, I think. And I was like, no, what are you talking about? Yeah, there was a group of us, and we went to jail. I must have said I checked people's background checks. And I think that was before I even knew how to do it back then. But I said I did it. And she said, we went to the hospital, and we pulled their records, and while they were having surgery, we would go into their house and do some identity theft. And she said, and she would dress up as the people, like, because she had their identity and they were a lot older, so she had to put on a wig and all this. It was so much fun. I bought so many things. And I'm like, why are you telling me all this? And I'm like, I don't understand how you still have a voucher. And she's like, well, they took me to court, but nothing ever happened. Yeah, I still have a voucher. It's a really big one too. She got a huge voucher, and
they'll get her eventually. Unfortunately, the same thing that makes people wait for vouchers is the same thing that'll likely keep them in the system longer. It takes them forever to do things.
I have reported her.
Yeah.
I mean, I was afraid of her, honestly.
Oh, you should have been. If she's drunk or high and doing other things, and she's willing to admit that, and to be honest with you, that's why I do those moral calls, talk with people, because believe it or not, people that are just that crazy, they're brutally honest.
Yeah.
They just think it's okay.
I tell landlords, just because they have Section 8, you still have to run your own background.
Yeah.
Maybe Section 8 didn't pick up on it yet. Maybe you would. Maybe it would be in the news and you'd be like, she was part of that ring? And they gave her a misdemeanor? I don't even like that at all while someone's in surgery. If their identity got stolen, I mean, that's as low as you can go.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's a lot of what goes on. That's how the prostitutes, drug dealers, and gang members get into this stuff. They'll date somebody that has no record, and that's the person they're getting to commit fraud. At the end of the program, then they set up shop, and that's why it's so careful when screening these type of tenants. And just like the border with drugs and other issues, you should be looking at the children, even the 89-year-old woman. It could be anybody in that group holding that voucher. Don't leave anybody out. I mean, they've gotten clever. People have had 60, almost 70 years to perfect ways to mess with this system. And to this day, it's still broken, in my opinion. I know that because a big part of my job was trying to unrig a rigged system. And, the rigging is broken, obviously, and it doesn't work favorably for the people that need it the most. So,
yeah. So now, is part of one of your consulting things you were saying earlier, people call you, they need all these tenants. Is that something you do? You help people find tenants?
Oh, absolutely. All the time. I got a lady out of New York right now. She's got 2 homes, and we're starting on her case later today and then Monday. And we're going to be pretty much going after different types of marketing for her and finding and screening the tenants all the way through. There are certain things that tenants do, certain behaviors and actions that are big red flags to me. How do I know that? Because I deal with Section 8 tenants almost 1,000 a year. So there's nothing, I do it so often that our company's almost ideally, favorably in that position to screen this type of tenants, because I know all the things that can go right and I know all the things that go wrong. And a lot of which I can get pretty good level of honesty out of people. So yeah, we do tenant screening, and we put properties on the market for landlords.
Oh, I didn't know you did. That's good.
We do occupancy too. Like we had two big hotels, not hotels, big buildings out in California. We managed to fill occupancy 60 days before the building opened. So I managed to get 500 tenants in line, negotiated the deals with the city, PHA, COC, and HUD-BASH, or Veterans Association. So sometimes we even negotiate incentives and work with city personnel to prepare the package, and then of course load the building with good qualified tenants.
It's a lot of work placing a tenant. I spend a majority of my time on the phone,
Yeah.
talking, weeding through people. And I've gotten a lot of the calls down because my investors don't want to buy my properties anymore unless I have a Section 8 tenant at them.
Yeah,
And so I do something that really makes people mad, but it's legal and it works.
right.
And I know when I list houses on Zillow, that's where I primarily list, which really bothers me that they charge $30 now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to list a house, or no one's ever going to see your listing. But I go into, excuse me, into Canva, which is a software
I know it.
that I use. You're familiar with it?
Oh, yeah, I use it all the time. Thumbnails.
Yeah. Right. Canva.com. It's really user friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And I put right across my photo, because people don't read the descriptions, Section 8 only. And that's where people get mad. That's illegal. It is illegal in some places. It's source of income. So I'm saying I only want this source of income, but it's like, I think even if I did it in an area that you can't do, where there's source of income laws, I don't want to try it. It just hasn't happened in Detroit yet. But who's coming after me?
Well, let me tell you a quick way to get
How
around
dare
that.
you?
You could do a Section 42 designation for the building, and then it wouldn't matter what that law is. It would supersede it. If a property is designated as a senior's property, accepting vouchers or subsidies, then that supersedes that law. Number two, there's people that are mentioning that. They're just trying to be egregious, because clearly, when you're putting when you're putting a property on the market, dealing with rents and vouchers, there should never be an argument about whether or not you're putting the property out there for somebody with a voucher, because the market is shrunk. I mean, gosh, what, 60% over 20 years? So if a market rate tenant with a job has the pick of the entire planet, then what exactly do you have to bitch about, you know? You want to go live in a Section 8 property? Come on. Whether it's a home or not. I mean, what's up with that? So some people just troll. You'll get used to the trolling, and I'm sure you have already. I get trolls every day.
Yeah, you've told me I should just delete them. I have been deleting some that are really quite mean.
I click on the picture, so when I see the nasty comment, first thing I do is I copy different parts of the comments that shouldn't reoccur on my channel. I go down to settings, and then I go in and I copy and paste the word in their block. Then I go and click on their picture, and then I hit the flag button, and then I press block. That's habitual every single day. And let me tell you something, I'm down to 0.5% of problems. I put people out, even if I think I'm misunderstanding, I just put them out. Because you don't want, if trolls can, they can tear your channel up.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not nice.
No politics, no religion, none of that.
I don't do that.
I block all those words because it's not the place for it.
Oh, you mean the comments? When people make those comments.
Any kind of comment related to those subject matters, I just straight block them in the channel. I don't want us discussing that. That's for a different kind of channel, you know.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're gonna attract a bunch of extremists in your channel, and then it will really get bad. And, and they'll troll other people too. I've seen people comment on my other clients' comments, and it gets pretty nasty. And Section 8 tenants are already fragile. You know, a lot of them are in a bad place, and those comments could send people, you know, off the deep end. And I don't need those kind of fights in my channel.
Yeah.
Well, she's a heavy girl.
Is she? She's so pretty. That coloring on her is really, really nice.
I've never had a cat with little swirls. A moon. See the moon right here?
Yeah.
I've never seen a cat like this. Now, some people told me they've seen cats like this before, but I never have. She's the most unusual. But this is little mama. And she's quite content right here.
Yeah.
My arms
want
to sleep.
Very happy. So how do I raise? I want to. Well, I've been working on raising rent on my tenants just to get more market. They have Section 8. Well, I rate. Well, all my tenants do anyway, except for one that's a family member. I raised it on him too, though. But how do I get the rent up and not have it hurt my tenant? How does that work? Because I've never quite fully understood. If I go for $100 more a month, is my tenant going to have to pay part of that 30% of their income toward higher rent? So then the tenant has to pay more?
Well, that's where it gets tricky, to be honest with you. So I'll only be able to give you a broad answer on this. One, rent calculations can be up to 200 pages. And a lot of PHAs, if they don't have somebody that... also, those rent calculations do not work for every PHA. They're all different. Number one, putting in the requests. So you're already designated there. You have a designated property to accept vouchers and so on. You pass HQS and all that good jazz. You can put in a request at that point, and there's not a specific form. You usually call in the executive level or the case manager that you were dealing with for the property, and you can put a request in for an adjustment that may not be more than a maximum of 10%, preferably around 5 to 7%. Some housing authorities will allow that adjustment every 6 months, but most of them once a year. If you're doing that, then the tenant should be informed, and housing authorities won't do this. Their rent reasonableness, which is their request for tenancy, they should also be going and matching the plot in the course of what you're doing. If their voucher has not been raised or reconsidered based on their yearly inspection, sorry, not inspection, their yearly filing. Recertification. I was sitting there trying to find that word. So every recertification, they should be going down there and talking to the caseworker about reevaluating the rent reasonableness that they're giving on their request for tenancy, and then matching that percentage if they can. And as you may or may not know, HUD is finally adapted to the last 3 years of the pandemic. So they took that test sample of 3 years, and now the SAM fares and fair market rates have been adjusted between no percent and 60%.
What is SAM fares?
Well, you have small area fair market rate, and then you have
okay.
So the difference is big city and then out in the country. And so fundamentally, anybody who gets jumps into being a landlord at this point will see probably. Give me 1 second.
You're just getting over a big cold, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. 12 days.
I think I got it. I woke up this morning hoarse.
First 5 days of misery.
They gave me this cold. It's like you're in Texas.
Yeah.
No, where are you? I don't know. But I'm in Michigan. You're online.
Yeah, I'm online right now.
You didn't give me a cold.
Yeah. So the fair market rates now are about 20% more for new landlords. So in your case, now that they've issued new FMRs, fair market rates, then I would suggest that it would be appropriate to go in to have a meeting with the person handling the HAP contract for you and your tenant, and requesting the higher rent at that point. But I got to be honest with you, when it comes to tenants and trying to worry about your interest and the tenant's interest, that's going to be hard to do. Because the rent calculations, the way they're designed, sometimes tenants get the majority, they end up paying out the majority of their money for rent and get very little from the PHA. And in other cases, the PHA may be covered 70%. The more the client makes financially, the more money is received and runs through their bank account, the less the PHAs may pay out. There are certain people that have vouchers right now that get a little more than $150 a month out of that deal. You see? So there's no way. So I would say to you that your one and only concern should be yours, and then informing the tenant that they may want to go ahead and get re-examined for the rent reasonableness to see if they can adjust any to help. But it's unlikely to do a great deal unless they are extreme low income. So it's kind of a complex deal, and there's a lot to consider in those rent calculations. And the person administering the rent calculations may be bad at math, and I've certainly seen a lot of bad calculations. they weren't correct, and they didn't consider assets and other things. And again, when you're hiring people to work at a PHA and they got a little $100 certificate of a bubblegum machine, and they're in charge of complicated mathematics and casework with about 1 week's experience at McDonald's for a day job, and their afternoon job is damaging everybody they can work with at the housing authority, you see how badly that goes.
Yeah. So when it feels like it's fair, like that their portion is so high that can't possibly be 30% of their, because 30% of their income has to go toward rent, like me, I guess, toward me. Yeah. So, or I mean, rent, not me personally, but the rent that I charge. If they feel like that can't possibly be 30%, they should really ask for a recertification. They should call you to ask for the recertification, right? Well, to see what happened there.
The 30/70 rule is the beginning. So that's where people have begun to learn about this process, and that's where they stop learning. That's only effective at extreme low income. Then there's a multitude of other rules and policies beyond that can complicate that number, and then the numbers would be more. It could be 95 and 5. See, that's the thing. People stop learning. They've heard 30/70, and that's what everybody presumes is the entirety of the equation. It's not. It's actually much more complicated. There's a lot more rules, hundreds of pages on it, and so you go in and get a voucher, think you've won the lottery and so on, but yet your income's just a little bit too high. Well, look, it won't be 30/70. Not when they get through administering their policies. Then it can be more like you're paying out 80%, and the housing authority is giving you 20%. So I think that's where we've gone wrong. Is HUD and DC and its regional offices have not stepped in and done any serious marketing over the years to correct the misunderstanding, and it's the sole fault of the news doing a poor job in research and then publishing nonsense, and that nonsense gets published in Google gobbles it up, and then it perpetuates the misunderstandings. What we need is a clear operational guide from HUD, which there's a little bit, so people can actually read it. But even if y'all read it, the complexity and being able to not only read it, interpret it, and then also be able to administer it successfully. Like your car breaks, you go to the library, you get a master guide. Doesn't make you a mechanic, does it? So that's the problem. There's 3 levels of it. So I would say that you're right. It's not going to be fair for everybody. It is quite different for every single person applying. How much they will get out of it, and whether it's even a waste of your time.
Yeah. But do you do that if somebody doesn't feel like the portion is fair? Is that something you're able to help them with?
Yeah. So you can do open state and federal request, and you can do it yourself, or you can get an attorney or a company like ours, and we go in, we send a request to the in-house counsel for the PHA, their attorney if they have one, and then demand that they start turning over operations procedures in relation to that subsection of rules. Once we have a fine understanding of how they're administering it, then we're able to kind of get a loose idea of the calculations. And I believe most PHAs have moved to more like an algorithm system where they punch in the details unless errors are made. Because in the old days, you pencil all those numbers together and you could forget things, and then you could screw up somebody's rent. That very much still happens in little country towns, because a PHA in a small county in Iowa could be just one little old lady in a shotgun house in a cornfield. A lot of people think that public housing authorities or these big, beautiful buildings are not. Many of them are just 1 or 2 employees in a virtual little home, a shack. You see it on the Google Maps, you're like, that's somebody's house. No, that's the local PHA. So skill, ability, education. And you think them little old ladies in Iowa at the cornfield, you think they're going to sit there and read federal all day to make sure? They're just doing the best they can. So you have to go ahead. You have to mediate, and if they're wrong, they're wrong.
Do you? At one point, I looked into what does it take to open my own PHA, and I was told you have to work for a year first for one. And I've always been self-employed, so me ever working for someone is probably not a good idea. I'm fortunate that way that I've been. I mean, it's got its pros and cons.
Why would you want to open a PHA?
Well, see, that's what I'll tell you why. Because when I turn in my paperwork to them, I'm like, what is your problem? I feel like I could work circles around them. I could help so many more landlords and tenants. It's very arrogant thinking on my part, to think that I could do better because I've never been there. I don't know what they do. But I wonder, what do you think they make, those private ones? Like there's the county or the city ones. Like we've got different cities that have PHAs. So those are all city employees. But then there's the private ones. Do they make money? Do the owners of those things make good money? Why do they do it?
Well, because they can shave 10% off the bottom line and do the bare minimum. And then they can subcontract all the work. So you get a nice leather sofa, put you in a little chandelier you buy at Lowe's. You sit there like a troll on a mountain of gold coins. You can run that thing. And then, actually, you shouldn't even show up to work. Just have the building and then subcontract to work overseas to process cases would be the simple way. And you can run your net.
That's what I was thinking. I could do circles around by hiring.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're going to push the paper, and that's all you're doing. And I can pay you $5 an hour. I could do 10 times the amount of work that you're doing in your office.
Yeah. HUD could.
Why don't they do that?
If we use as much money as we do on our war budget and our highway budget to fix HUD, not HUD, but if HUD had the time to go to the major colleges and get really smart students to build a total system that all PHAs must abide by, now they would still be allowed to change to match the course of the local community, then that would change all this, interconnect it all together, and then subcontract the work. Because people that are in Singapore or India and all, they're not going to be as prejudicial as the people we hire. So we deal with big issues with harassment, prejudicial behavior, racism, and all that.
Oh, yeah.
And when you have overworked, underpaid people here, anytime you call, you're bothering them. Most of my clients are stunned by how that lady talked to me like I was a trickle on 3rd Street. Yeah. She don't want to hear nothing out your mouth. And then, of course, the people that own the voucher, they're so scared to report anything and don't know where to report it, they're going to put in servitude to the housing authority because now they can't complain because they're scared that woman will just simply press a button and then make them disappear. And that's the biggest thing I get all the time, that they're fearful to report anything, which perpetuates the lack of change. Nobody reports.
Okay, so the reason not to do it is obviously there's not that good of money in it.
Yeah, the money would be garbage. You'd be wasting your time, and you could possibly get up over your head.
And I would totally, because I'm really bad at accounting. That could be a disaster for voucher holders.
You haven't anticipated that a lot of the clients you're going to deal with, about 40% are going to have mental health issues. And remember, you've got to answer that phone. And despite those mental health problems, unlike my company that can stop that type of behavior over a course, you're going to talk to people that may have schizophrenia and other issues. They're not going to make any sense. And then you're required at that point by city contract to do so. Even though you know that person has no grip on reality. We deal with our company all the time, and I still work with clients that have serious mental health issues. We just keep changing appointments till we know they're having their best moment or day. But you, by virtue, would be stuck with that case. And so when they call your phone 68 times in an hour, and they send you emails roughly 30 to 40,000 words once a day, that alone could devastate your ability to do your job. Now you're starting to kind of see why it takes crazy to deal with some of the craziness that goes on in housing authorities. It's a lot, man. There needs to be a psychiatric component built into this.
Before they leave, they should be like the 911 workers. They have their decompression room they go to before they go home that night.
Even in my contract, I always say, if you got an emergency while I'm having a holiday vacation, please call 911. Because the only people who are going to try to call me at midnight on a Sunday are going to be people that should be calling 911 anyways.
Yeah. I took a 911 call today. I shouldn't have answered.
That's right.
From a tenant.
I always let it go to voicemail. If you're not a client, I'm sorry, we can't help you just yet. Anytime my lips are moving, that constitute consulting. And I don't know how else best to help clients, because a lot of people perceive my company, and they'll eventually perceive you this way, that anytime you pick up that phone, that you are the public information line, and then a lot of people make the assertion that you should just sit on that phone for an hour or two and do it for free. Look,
I know. I've noticed. And that's when I send them to you, Jay.
Yeah, that's why I've got voicemail and I
I don't
screen.
know. Call Jay.
Yes, ma'am. And we send them
He'll
out to voicemail.
reward you. I can't seem to do that.
Yep. It's like
It's worth something what you know. It's worth something.
Why do you think attorneys do it? Why do you think attorneys do it?
I know.
I never could figure that out for years. And then, of course, in this business line, I finally got tired of being on the phone for free for 2 or 3 hours at a time per client. It'll destroy your company's day. And I'd have to have an extraordinary staff. It's not about making money, man. You've got to use your time constructively. And you making those videos about Section 8 makes you a lovely target. Because they're going to want to talk. They're going to want to shoot the cool with you.
I just want them to buy my houses.
That's right. We gotta get
How did you get into this, Jay? What made you want to do this line of work?
Well, interestingly enough, a long time ago, I was homeless as a teenager and a young adult. And by virtue of being out on those streets for a very long period, I was dealing with the same broken system that everybody else was. And what I found curious is rather than sitting under the bridge and using drugs and alcohol, I chose to use my time at a law library. I said, now I want something. It's there to help. I meet the criteria, but you want to play games. And so I went from feeling sad to pissed off. And I said, well, since I have nothing better to do with my time, then I'm going to figure out ways to destroy or get what I need. It was a do or die situation, I hated how convoluted it all was. And I hated that I was such... again, in servitude to these people, they were making all these determinations without no reasoning, no telling you. So I spent all my time unraveling the system, and over a course of now 22 years, and prior to that as well, I've read everything. There's nothing that my eyes have not touched. In the beginning, when I had clients, I started to realize I was doing my job pretty well in the beginning. But it got really good after about 5 to 8 years in, because at that point, people understood I was doing it for free for clients. But they were kind of my test dummies. And then I started learning rapidly after that. The bigger factor was once I was able to see the entire system, get all the manuals, and I figured out most of the process, about 98%. Then I had former and current housing authority employees and directors contacting my company, pouring a wealth of information, documentation, policy, procedures, and data manuals. Man, I got about over 100 now. Once they took, that was at 2% you couldn't get unless you worked in a PHA. Once I got a little over 100 of those in there, I was able to fill in all the gaps. And a lot of them gave me, I wouldn't say that it was federally sensitive data, but they gave me those missing gaps. This is why you're struggling so hard, Jay, to get this particular part done with your client. This is what we're doing in an office that's not on the books. And when you learn that, you learn it, as we both know, every housing authority operates differently. They do not all follow the same procedures.
Yeah. Yep.
Once you're able to hear a housing authority employee lie to you 15,000 different ways, they eventually run out of ways to lie and bullshit you. You eventually build up a counter to everything they're doing. Then your counters actually become very successful. Then you get to a point where you have PHA start sending you cease and desist. They prefer you to go away. So at that point, I view a cease and desist letter as an honorary degree. They're letting me do it. I'm doing it so well, they prefer that I no longer. So at this point, I'm pretty successful. And I don't need to lie, cheat, or break the law. I simply use the broken rules that they have. And can you blame a man for taking and reading from the beginning to the end? Then you look at all the big holes in there, you reverse engineer, and what does common sense tell you? If you already understand the system in its totality, you know where all the holes are. So unless Congress is going to change these rules, we'll continually legally walk our clients, trampling all the way through it. And now, does that mean that I'm exploiting PHAs? Well, it makes a little difference to me. Lawmakers make laws all the time to service their families and friends and constituents. I'm not doing anything different. My constituency are people that need vouchers that are already dealing with a rigged and broke system, in my opinion, in most cases. The last thing I'm going to say about that is simply this. Not every housing authority operates badly or unethically, in my opinion, okay? There are a lot of them that do a magnificent job. And the one agency I don't have any problems with is HUD. HUD's always done a good job. I think they're doing the best they can there. They're not the housing authority. They're just administrators of the federal funds, and they are the people, the very people that investigate and sue housing authorities. And so my relationship to HUD, I believe, I quite enjoy that agency. I wish they had more. And Marissa Fudge, that runs that place, that lady's been on a rampage, absolutely destroying housing authorities that have operated illegally, that have been doing all kinds of things to violate federal law. That woman's been on a rampage for a couple of years now. She's the best there's ever been in that agency, and quite proud of her.
Wow.
So,
Well, we're all in Detroit area. There's the biggest housing commission that does the best vouchers, that has the best inspectors, is a big whole hot mess right now. And it's Detroit Housing Commission, and they're very understaffed. And when they lost one of their big caseworkers, probably when she found out she could make more at McDonald's, when they lost one of their best caseworkers, the recertification stopped happening, and so we stopped getting paid. And I've been 6 months now without rent for one of my tenants because I didn't know why. I thought, did I miss an inspection? If you fail an inspection twice, for those who don't know, the third time, if they come back a third time, it's in abatement, or after 2 times it goes into abatement, which means that I'm no longer getting rent. So I called that tenant. I said, did I miss something? Did we not know there was an inspection? We didn't do the repairs? She said, no, we haven't had an inspection. So months of this, they finally, of me hammering them, because there's no calling them, it doesn't work, just emailing and figuring out who are the supervisors and emailing, they sent her a package, a recertification package with the return address in Georgia, not Detroit. Yeah. So they obviously called in to help. And I told her that I'm going to have to get an attorney involved because I can't keep doing this. And I don't want to evict her.
Yeah, they're public too, so you could just sue them. Now, interestingly enough, the rules are never applied evenly. All these rules are designed to make everybody do specific things in specific timelines. What's interesting is the housing authority doesn't set up timelines in which how it operates, which means when they pay and all that. So, since you haven't received money from them, then that's permissible at this point that you could just simply sue them. They owe you the money, and they owe it with interest at this point. Now, if they're unable to perform their conduct their job in a reasonable time period or a reasonable manner, then they need to pick a new job. Fact is, that's how much in total you believe you're owed?
Well, what's 6 months times her rent is $840. I was trying to go for like $1,000 because it's way below market now.
I'd take that to small claims court, get a default judgment on it, and when they don't cut you that check within 30 days, then you can put a mechanics lien on the building, the housing authority itself, have your attorney out there with a truck, and you'll default, take all the furniture out the building. Oh, yeah.
It's just so wrong. And so many landlords, we just don't know what recourse we have. Like they'll...
A judge, administrative judge, is about the only way you can deal with that at this point, to force them, because clearly the housing authority has gotten away with a lot. These people, all these PHAs have been operating under their own rules, making them up as they go and doing all kinds, stepping all over federal law. They rarely get caught because rarely do people ever report them or challenge them. They're subject to the same laws of the state, and if they're not going to pay that rent, they guaranteed they have actually broke that contract with you. That HAP contract, they entered an agreement, they broke it. Now, they're going to have to pay that money, or they sell the building.
What about HUD, though? You were just talking about how great HUD is. Can't I just call up HUD and be like, hey, do you care? Can you do anything?
Well, I think that would be part of the process, a grievance process, steps, arbitrary steps that you've notified by, and you've used, I would say, sending a statement or an attorney statement to them with a tracking number to show that I filed a complaint at the housing authority. I have now filed with HUD's main office. So you went through the different rings of the ladder rungs of the ladder, and that way you can show that you've been given no reprieve, and this is why you're standing before your honor. That you need to sue them, and if they're unwilling to pay the awarded debt, and these people aren't going to show up for court, so it'd be an instant default. So whatever value is in the building, I suppose that becomes rent. Now, the likelihood of that point is whoever administratively is working at the executive level at that housing authority, magically, it was just a big mistake, and here's your check. Better have interest.
That's what I'm thinking. They'll just give me the $840 when I went for a rental increase 6 months ago. I want my rental increase too. Because $840 is below market.
Another way you could do this is $100 to maybe $200. Do a media packet. Send your story to around 35 to 80 different news agencies. Let them pick it up, and that's a way of not doing this dealing with an illegal side. You're just throwing them under the bus. Period.
Yeah.
Because at that point, because there's always the legal way and there's the media way, and they're both highly effective. The media way would wreck them pretty bad. Not only that, but then you're probably going to find out you're not the only person they're doing this to.
Oh, I know I'm not.
And
it came up at our landlord breakfast yesterday.
And that would force
HUD. Avoid Detroit housing. Don't take Detroit housing. And right now I feel so badly when people call and I have to cringe and say, okay, which voucher? Where's your voucher through? If they say Detroit housing, I tell them. And every time I've told them, they're like, oh, yeah, I keep hearing that. So now their tenants can't even get rent. So then what I did was I thought, okay, what's your name? Who's your caseworker? So now I'll email that caseworker and say, can you resolve this? Because once you do, then I'll look at this person's application. Because meanwhile, I can't rent to her.
Right.
And apparently she's getting the same response from everyone.
Oh, goodness. That's wild.
It didn't work. It didn't work. I got a form letter back. This is how Section 8 works. Like,
oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They gave you some cookie cutter stuff, right?
Yeah, like I didn't ask you how Section 8 works.
When you don't have an explanation. Just like when you try to do a return with some stores, and the people that are from other places that are supposed to be helping you, the first thing they do is send an email that makes no sense. It doesn't even address the issue. It's all a stall tactic, right?
Yeah.
And of course, it incites you emotionally, because then you're like, okay, it gets you to do one thing, the same thing they do to voucher holders. It gets you to go away, because more than likely you'll become mad, and then of course you feel like you're doing somebody ignorant. So they've achieved mentally what they wanted to do with you. Keep sending you bullshit. That way you just go away in anger, and then feel that you can't deal with it. Man, I tell you, a couple $100 to put it before the judge, and then see how they'd like to taste that.
Yeah.
Really, I think the media packet would be the bigger house wrecker for them, because then that would force HUD's office to investigate them, and then administratively HUD would take over the case and sue them. And when that happens, it's game and match. Whoever's running that, look, DC's office, DC HUD, just Marissa Fudge went after them. Now, the president is in DC. The Housing Authority and HUD's main building is in DC. DC Housing Authority forever was untouchable because they were there. No, they didn't want no attention in Washington, D.C. with the president and also HUD.
Oh, yeah, they're probably all intermarried.
Yeah, just by location. D.C. had gotten away, D.C. Housing Authority gotten away with murder for a long time. Well, Marissa Fudge didn't care. She rounded up a busload of federal agents, stormed the building, and charged them with about 81 different violations. She didn't give a shit that her office was in the same neighborhood. She doesn't care that the president and the rest are in the same neighborhood. She went in there, and she had the whole board got fired. A lot of people got their walking papers.
Good.
This was an agency that was untouchable. I made a video about that because let me tell you, at that point, it spelled out one thing: that woman can't be bought. She don't give a damn about politics. She went out there and did her job, which literally for her would have been more or less ride a block.
Yeah.
To go deal with it. It was stunning to see that.
Wow. So I saw that there was a board meeting and I just missed it. Detroit Housing Commission had one. I don't know if they do them every month or what. I can go to that, right?
Absolutely. I would.
I don't live in the city, Detroit proper. Can I still go to it?
Absolutely.
I mean, I have rentals there.
The key point is it's a public housing authority. So by virtue of public, they must be open to request, whether by mail or you showing up at their meetings.
And what would I do at the meeting?
Well,
Do you think he'd let you talk?
Absolutely, because that's a public meeting, so it has to have an opportunity for the public to speak on the matter.
Okay.
It's not just there for them to make their personal announcements and then everybody leave. You can air whatever grievance you have as long as it's within the rules that they set for the meeting, and you don't bring it out of context. So,
yeah.
Well, Monique, I am running dangerously low on energy. We've had a pretty long one here.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you for doing this. I hope you invite me again.
We're gonna do it again because we got to get this right. We got to.
I got more stuff for you too.
Oh, I bet you do.
I've always got questions for you that would be helpful to landlords.
Well, why don't we do some more? We'll do some more and start cutting through some of those topics. And I think at some point we may have an epiphany and figure out actually how to get this thing live.
Yeah. I'm coming to Texas. I warned you.
Yeah. Are you gonna miss Monique on the plane?
I told my husband that, and he's like, Monique, you scared the poor guy. Why'd you tell him you're coming to do a live with him? Wow.
Hey, I've got people that...
I've always wanted to go to Texas. That sounds like fun. You come to Detroit. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
People think Detroit's so bad. It's because they haven't seen it lately.
Look, I know better than how people publicize things. It's always with an agenda, man. Look, Detroit ain't no worse off than any other state.
We're the comeback city. It's actually quite exciting to see all the progress happening in Detroit.
Well, they didn't mind when all that stuff was going down about the buildings and all. Running the camera, hundreds of hours of bullshit, right? That's not... Look, every city has got a rough area. Mm-hmm. But the news only wanted to focus on 3 square miles of not... You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're nothing like L.A., I've heard.
Nah.
We're like Candyland compared to L.A.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, yeah. So, thanks for having me. Let's do it again someday.
Absolutely.
Soon. I appreciate it. My YouTube channel. Well, do you want me to say?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
I think if you just search my name, you find it. Monique
Burns.
Yep, Monique Burns, and you'll see me and my multiple hairstyles.
Right. And we'll also we'll post links from both sides, her and I. We'll post links of channels, website if you have one, and whatever contact information we can give out. Yes. And if you want to subscribe or whatever, I don't ever advertise that stuff because I think it's annoying to beg people for subscribers. But how do you do it?
That's because we're big now, Jay. I'm just a little guy.
Please subscribe to Miss Monique. She would quite enjoy that.
I would. I'm not beyond begging, am I? See me, I'm here with you.
Hey, I remember the old days when I had to lower subscriber level. You got to do what you got to do to get up there. But this is the best way to do it, collaboration.
I just tell the truth too, People seem to appreciate that.
You have to. Mm-hmm. All right, well, I'm going to close this out for now. Monique, was there anything else you wanted to bring up in the video?
No, thank you so much.
So, guys, this is my personal recommendation. You're in Detroit, around Detroit. Monique Burns is the queen of Detroit. You need a home, you need a house, you want to buy it, go to her. She'll sew it up. Even if it's in relation to Section 8, we do collaborate quite a bit on the phone. And so... this is the person you want to address. Y'all guys know that because I've made enough videos, 700. And I know who's doing the right thing and who's doing the wrong thing on YouTube. And I think that her advice and her ability to get the job done would be paramount to what you're doing. That way you know somebody. She's willing to put her face on YouTube and not hide behind some website and other things and be faceless. Tells you this lady's out there ready to do the job for you. So... all right, guys. Well, I'm going to close it up for now. And, Monique, we'll talk again here and see if we can do another one maybe in another week or so.
Yeah, thank you.
All
Have
right.
a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.